and he grabs the ball. He goes down the court. 5, 4, 3, 2. He shoots it one. What a shot! Arkansas State gets the win. Cooper, what a great shot that was by the basketball team.
It was an amazing shot. Wait, this isn't a basketball game. This is Red Wolf Roundtable. Welcome everyone to Red Wolf Roundtable. I'm Cooper Melder, and alongside me is Tristan Harlan. How are you doing, bud?
I'm doing good, man. It's another beautiful day here in Jonesboro. I'm proud to say that they approved us for a second episode, and we're here back on ASU-TV for Red Wolf Roundtable for you guys.
Yes, and so the first segment today will be recap of last week's game. Arkansas State took on ULM Warhawks, and what a great game that was because, you know what? We came out with a dub.
Hey, it's always a good day when the Red Wolves get a W. I mean, they got back into the win column, something we haven't seen since week one. The guys played tremendously out there. Corey Rucker was able to do his thing. Lane Hatcher was able to do his thing. And look at what a beautiful pitch and catch that was by Arkansas State. And, you know, it was just one of those games that Arkansas State knew what they needed to do coming into that game. They struggled at times, but at the end, when all the smoke and dust settled, they won, and they won by a field goal.
Yes, and Lane Hatcher had himself a game, 34 for 50 for 444 yards and a pair of touchdowns. Now, he did have 2 interceptions, but to throw 2 interceptions and come out with the win, I'll take it.
Right. That's something that Hatcher has struggled with all year, is really been trying to find his groove. Even if it's late in the season, he's been known to kind of force the ball into somewhere where it doesn't need to be, and it's been intercepted a couple times. Like I said, that's something that ASU has struggled with a lot, is the turnovers. I mean, even on the defensive side of the ball, the defense hasn't really shown up and shown out like they have been known to do. But overall, it was a great game. Just another beautiful touchdown catch there from Arkansas State. And I'm just happy to say that here in Jonesboro, we finally saw another Arkansas State victory for Butch Jones' first year as an Arkansas State head coach.
Yes, and you love to see it because it was an 8-game losing streak. You know, we haven't seen A-State win. You would have to go back to week 1 where they beat UCA. But, you know, this is something you need to brag upon of, because ULM, they came into the game 4-5 and 2-4 in conference. You know, they weren't a bottom feeder. I mean, they may be last in the conference, but they still had 4 wins. And as the stats pop up, it's just a game. You get a conference win, something to build on.
Right. You're just seeing the stats now. Really didn't do much on the ground with the rushing yards. ULM had 177 to our 94. But look at the passing yards, Cooper. That is what we like to see from the Arkansas State Red Wolves. We know that Lane Hatcher can sling that rock when he's given the chance. And look, 444 yards. He was 34 for 50. What a great game that was by Hatcher. He was able to run the offense at his own will. And, you know, you see the total yards there, 538 for the Red Wolves, and only had 4 penalties. You don't like to see the 4 penalties, but the turnovers, that's a great improvement from what we've seen previous this season.
And one thing I do like to see is our defense stepping up, not even giving up 200 yards passing. And I think this is maybe one of the first games all year we haven't given up almost 300 yards in just rushing. And so it's just a great game from the defense. They forced 2 turnovers. You love to see the defense stepping up.
Right. Well, that, I mean, like we were saying, that's just a great game for the Arkansas State Red Wolves. And, you know, this is a lot to do for the rest of the year. I mean, sure, it's late in the year. Season's about to wrap up. Butch Jones is about to have his first year underneath his belt. But let me tell you something, Cooper. Let me tell you something, brother. This team will be an important team to watch in the coming years as Butch Jones gets his own players in recruiting, gets his own kind of offense and his own kind of defense implemented with the coaching staff. And this team, I won't be surprised in the next 2 to 3 years or before we even graduate that we're playing in big-time bowl games and really leaving our mark on the Sun Belt like Coastal Carolina has been doing in the previous years.
And one player I really want to hit on is the kicker, Blake Group. He kicked the game-winning field goal for A-State, and with that game-winning field goal, it also gave them the Sun Belt Conference Special Teams Player of the Week, which is very, very good. You love to see it from your kicker.
Right, you touched on him just a little bit, but correct me if I'm wrong. I do believe he's up for a national award. This is something you love to see if you're a diehard fan of the Red Wolves. Even if you're a student as the Red Wolves here at Arkansas State supporting the Red Wolves, when you're sitting in the student section, you just love seeing your guys win. You love seeing your guys perform the best that they can, whether it's at home, whether it's on the road. It's just a great environment for the Red Wolves and for their student section. But players, they come and they go. Just like what happened earlier when when they was announced that Marcel Murray has announced that he's going to enter his name into the transfer portal. That's just something, as you see on screen now, that what he tweeted. He thanked the teams, he thanked the fans, he thanked the media. But that's just a sad thing to see that Murray's going to be leaving the Arkansas State Red Wolves.
And I support his decision for leaving. I get maybe he has better opportunities not here at A-State. I do agree with that. Like, go where you need to go. But at the same time, I get he's hurt. But I would at least wait it to the end of the season, kind of. Because some people can look at it and be, oh, he's quitting on his team. Well, that may not be the case. It's just how it looks. And so I would have waited. But either way, I wish him the best.
I mean, this just goes to show that, even though it's late in the year, even though the season's about to wrap up, players are kind of looking at that advantage of, hey, we're playing poorly, we have a poor record, so they can opt out early. So I'm just excited to see what Butch Jones could do in the coming years, Coop.
Yes, and so next week, Arkansas State does go on and play Georgia State, who we beat last year 59-52, so hopefully we can carry that over.
Right, it's just going to be a great game, and I'm excited to see what the Red Wolves can do.
All right, that is good. So, Red Wolf fans, we will be going to break. You're watching Red Wolf Roundtable.
We're all just trying to keep things running for those who rely on us. That's why we don't have time to be sick with the flu.
We don't have time for delays.
We don't have time for spills.
Next.
We don't have time for setbacks. Let's be real.
Getting the flu shot
Helps you fight the flu.
Get a flu shot for yourself and those around you, too.
How prepared is your family if a tornado shows up at your doorstep, or a flood, or a hurricane? You can't just turn away a natural disaster. That's why it's important to go to ready.gov/plan now. It has the tools and tips you need to make an emergency plan with your family. So if disaster comes knocking,
Let's go.
you'll be ready to help keep your family safe.
It's just a pizza.
Make a plan today.
Welcome back, everybody, to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. If you're just tuning in, you missed the first segment. I'm Tristan Harlan here with my good broadcast partner, Cooper Melder. Cooper, we had a lot of exciting basketball here on Arkansas State's campus last night in the doubleheader, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of the action. First up, we have the men's game. They beat Central Baptist 90-63, and what an exciting game it was. Both teams played really well, and Arkansas State fought hard, fought strong, and was able to come out with the win.
Yes, it was a great game. You had Norshad O'Meara. He only played 12 minutes due to fouling out, but he had 16 points along with 1 steal, 1 block, and 6 total rebounds. And we saw a really true point guard game from Desi Sills.
Right, Cooper. I mean, we mentioned last time when they played Harding that O'Meara was your guy to watch the whole year, that O'Meara was going to be your number one guy. And, I kind of said Desi Sills was going to be my guy coming from Arkansas and the experience he had there. But this just shows that when Seals plays like a point guard and O'Meara fouls out, they still have options to score the basket, and they still have options to still win the game. I mean, as you see, Desi Sills absolutely lighting it up on the court there. But even with O'Meara fouling out, Cooper, it was still an exciting game for the fans, for Arkansas State, to show that, hey, like we were saying last time, this is going to be a team that either they're going to make it or they're going to break themselves. Because right now, I don't see no team beating them but themselves. I mean, as you see now, the stats on the screen, Arkansas State went 36 for 68, shot 7 for 19 from 3, and it was just a great game for Arkansas State. They could have did better on the 3, but Cooper, let's get your thoughts. What do you think about the stats right now?
Well, I like to see a slow improvement on 3-pointers. Last game against Harding, I think they only hit about 2 or 3, and you really can't have that. You have too many good shooters on your team to not be hitting almost 10 3-pointers per game. Now, free throws, they went 11 for 19, missing 8. They need to improve that. In the first half, they missed about 4 straight free throws. You can't miss those. They're free for a reason. They're free points. You've got to capitalize, and that's why it was close in the beginning, because we weren't taking advantage of it. But I know you would like it. 2 fast break points compared to our 28.
Right, Cooper. The fast break is what really is going to make this team. You got Desi Seals. He's a great elusive guy who can, do the flashy passes, do the acrobatic layups. He even had a fancy Euro step towards the end of the game. And, Cooper, it's just one of those things that, like we were talking about last week, if you struggle with guarding Omier and Seals, you're going to lose the game. But if you're able to lock them guys down, that maybe you have a chance to beat this team. But right now, I'm sure once they look over it and practice and everything, I'm sure they're going to have more than just Omier and Seals that are going to be those 1-2 guys that, hey, even we got guys coming off the bench that can easily drop 15 to 20 points a game.
Yeah, that is true. And if you're listening to Brad Bobo last night, you may have said the men's upcoming game against SEMO, it's going to be a real test for them for how conference play is going to come out and how they're going to do. And so this is going to be a good game, as Match Predictor has it as 50-50. It's a toss-up game.
Right, Cooper. I mean, like you were saying with Brad Bobo, shout out to him, as he was saying on there, this is going to be the first true test as we get into Sun Belt Conference play later on. I'm excited to see what this team can do. I mean, they've had their ups and downs. They had 2 games in an expedition game, and we saw how elusive Seals is, how strong on defense Omier is. So I'm just excited to see if we can knock down the 3-ball next game, and we can really just work that ball around and show that, we don't need Seals and Omier as our only 2 guys.
Yes, and, Desi's averaging 13.7, and Omier's averaging 7.7 rebounds per game, and then you have Fields, who's averaging 5.3 assists per game. If we're going to want to win this game, we're going to have to be able to hit the 3-pointer. We can't be coming up short on shots when it's wide open. We are going to have to knock down the 3-ball, and we're going to have to make our free throws, and we're going to have to capitalize off the turnovers.
Cooper, you're absolutely right, but before we get too ahead of ourselves, we're going to go ahead and take a break, guys, and when we come back, we're going to be talking a little bit about some women's basketball.
Every day,
millions of people are connecting.
And even though we're overcoming obstacles,
watching each other's backs,
and banding together,
we should still make an effort.
To get to know each other
on a deeper level. Father,
cosplayer,
mentor,
actor.
It's time we take a step forward.
Come together
and discover
how accepting our differences
can make us stronger.
Did you know dragging chains can spark a wildfire?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
We're all just trying to keep things running for those who rely on us. That's why we don't have time to be sick with the flu.
We don't have time for delays.
Ready! We don't have time for spills.
Next. We don't have time for setbacks. Let's be real.
Getting the flu shot
helps you fight the flu.
Get a flu shot for yourself and those around you too.
How prepared is your family if a tornado shows up at your doorstep, or a flood, or a hurricane? You can't just turn away a natural disaster. That's why it's important to go to ready.gov/plan now. It has the tools and tips you need to make an emergency plan with your family. So if disaster comes knocking,
Let's go.
you'll be ready to help keep your family safe.
It's just a pizza.
Make a plan today.
Welcome back, Red Wolves fans. You're watching Red Wolf Roundtable. We now go into our next segment, which is over the women's basketball game against Mcneese State Cowgirls.
Cooper, I mean, it was a great game overall. You saw a lot of points in the paint. You saw a lot of fundamental basketball, moving the ball around great, as you're seeing the highlights on screen now. It was just a great game overall to start that doubleheader.
It was a great game. You know, we saw a lot of good ball movement. We had 5 different players in double digits.
Right. If you take a look at the box score, you saw girls like Upshaw, Love, Pendleton, Wallace, and Patton all getting into the double digits like you mentioned. But let's not forget Jade Upshaw. She came off the bench, and she was really the focal point of the Arkansas State Red Wolves women's basketball team. You know, you saw the 14 points. She was 5 for 12 free throws. She was 4 for 10 from 3. But, you know, this is one of those type players that they can come off the bench, start that fire that your starters need to really get the going to win the ball games. And like I said, she's a freshman, so we still have 3 years for her if maybe she gets redshirted possibly next year if something happens. But it was just a great game for Arkansas State.
And it was a dominating win, and it gives them momentum. I mean, with a big win like this, a 24-point win, there's nothing more than you can ask for. Now they could do some improvement maybe on the three-point shot, but besides that, they had 42 rebounds as a team and 24 assists as a team. So
right.
They love to move the ball around.
Right, as you see it on screen now, just straight bully ball there by the Arkansas State Red Wolves. Is just like we've been saying, ball movement was key in this game. Ball movement, communication, you know, they had a little bit of turnover trouble to begin the game, but overall, this is what you want to see for a team game like the game of basketball is. There was no selfishness. You know, we talked about Desi Seals and Omar, how they're really the two guys for the men's team. And this team, in the women's team, they shared the rock. They shared the wealth. As you see the stats on screen now, Arkansas State shot 39 for 80 for the field, 7 for 23 from 3, 11 out of 15 of the free throws, 42 rebounds, 15 turnovers, and 58 points in the paint. Cooper, that 15 turnovers, that's an ugly number. I don't like seeing the number 15 there. I want to see a big fat goose egg in this next game, which we're going to be talking about pretty soon.
Yes, you need to limit the turnovers. You can give up 15 points to the team they played last night, but once conference play comes around, you can't be giving up 15 points. Now, they did have 58 points in the paint, which was more than half of their points, so you like to see that. They're getting the ball inside and getting the easy bucket.
Cooper, like we were saying, it was just an overall great game for the Arkansas State's women's team, and I'm excited to see what they do in the rest of the season.
Oh, for sure. And stay along. You're going to like this next segment. You're watching Red Wolf Roundtable.
We're all just trying to keep things running for those who rely on us. That's why we don't have time to be sick with the flu.
We don't have time for delays.
We don't have time for spills.
Next.
We don't have time for setbacks. Let's be real.
Getting the flu shot
helps you fight the flu.
Get a flu shot for yourself and those around you too.
How prepared is your family if a tornado shows up at your doorstep, or a flood, or a hurricane? You can't just turn away a natural disaster. That's why it's important to go to ready.gov/plan now. It has the tools and tips you need to make an emergency plan with your family. So if disaster comes knocking,
Let's go.
you'll be ready to help keep your family safe.
It's just a pizza.
Make a plan today.
Welcome back, everybody, to the last segment of this week's show. We're talking more about women's basketball, about what's coming up this week for the Red Wolves. Cooper, I know you're looking at the schedule and you're feeling kind of froggy about this game. We're playing the Arkansas Razorbacks here in Jonesboro, and this game has a little bit of history behind it. We actually had a chance to sit down with Brad Bobo to get his thoughts on what happened previously and how he feels about this game coming up.
Obviously, you got to look at the history of it. And by saying that, it means you got to look at the lack of history of it. And, folks in the state pretty well know that for decades and decades and decades, Arkansas wouldn't compete against in-state schools. In the last 2 times prior to the last year or so, the only other 2 times it happened was when it was dictated by a bracket in the NIT for men's basketball back in '87, or the WNIT in 2005 here in Jonesboro. So, so the longer you've been an A-State fan, probably the bigger the chip is on your shoulder about that, just about somebody that won't compete against you. And I'm not even sure that fans even all wanted to, as much the fact that it just kind of ticked people off that you couldn't because they wouldn't. And so, that this is a cool sort of usher in a new era here coming up Friday night, because this is not a one-off. This is the first of, I think maybe they've agreed to 4 here, and not only is it going to start up happening, but it's starting in Jonesboro. So that coupled with baseball went over to Fayetteville last year, and they'll play a 2-game midweek series against those guys this year. You can see the track teams can compete at the same places. You may see golf teams cross paths somewhere. Of course, in 2025, you got a football game coming up in Little Rock. So it took a long time to get here, but finally got to the year where eventually, we won't even have these conversations about these games happening, because they'll become almost the norm.
Right. And another one I want to ask you next is, what was the feeling, once that final buzzer sounded in the arena during the NIT game back in 2005? What was the energy like? What was the feeling of when all the students rushed it forward and we ended up beating Arkansas?
Well, it didn't take to the final buzzer, because you knew from pretty well on out, the outcome was kind of set. Never trailed in the game. They had a kid, Sarah Pfeiffer, that played great. She played like the best player on the floor, and that's honestly the reason it wasn't a total blowout. So, you didn't have this late game anticipation. Oh my gosh, are you going to hit this shot? Are you going to get this stop? Coming down the stretch, sort of a victory lap. You knew who was going to win. And you got to dribble out the clock with 98 points, with every fan in there screaming and hollering to go score because they wanted to get 100. So there didn't have to be this big crescendo. Now, sure, the buzzer is when people storm the court and stuff, but what makes that night, what people still talk about now, is the energy of the whole deal. It's you can't replicate, and you couldn't predict it. It was a perfect storm of all these factors that came together on that night and led to the biggest crowd to ever see a basketball game here, men's or women's. It can't. That night cannot be replicated, and the energy of it from the time they opened the doors on, it really is a big part of the reason why.
Well, we got the game coming up Friday, so is there any expectations you have for this game? Do you expect State to keep it competitive with Arkansas? Because, you hear the rumors, you hear everybody talk about this team, Arkansas team, that they're really good. But do you expect, your honest opinion, do you expect, a real close contest, maybe an A-State victory?
I think it's going to be a fun ball game. And I don't have a clue who's going to win, because both these rosters, really in their own way, are pretty young. A-State's been rolling with some freshman guards. Arkansas's got this batch of young, super talented kids from the state, including Alana Eaton, who's coming home to Jonesboro to play in this game. So I think you see a bunch of young, talented players on the floor. I do think the Arkansas program's in a much different place than it was when it rolled in here in 2005. That night, the thing about that game in 2005 is it wasn't a fluke. The better team won the game. and that there really wasn't any question about that. Their program's in a different place. Mike Neighbors has done such a good job over there, and they've got this young core of talent that's still young right now, and it's probably to Arkansas State's advantage a little bit to be playing it this early. A-State's young, but so is Arkansas, so it's gonna be fun to see all these young kids just get out there and get after it.
My last question for you, Mr. Bobo, today is, what does this game mean? It's not an NIT game. It's not really for bragging rights in the championship tournament. It's just another regular season non-conference game. What does this game mean, in your honest opinion, to just everybody here?
Well, I mean, it's a big deal because, number one, it's a big deal because this particular one's the first time it's happened in the regular season in almost 40 years. So this one still is big. And it's big because it's in-state competition. There are bragging rights involved, and that's got nothing to do with 2005. Nothing's changing that. But the one thing we learned in 2005 is that no matter who wins Friday night, even if Arkansas State was to knock them off again, Saturday morning that old sun will come up and everybody will go about their business. And like I said, sooner or later, like I still love talking about it, and I'm glad you guys came and we got to talk about 05 a little bit. But because of sort of where Arkansas is having this philosophical shift, this will quit being so newsworthy, which is a blessing and a curse because it's cool that we finally get to this point where these teams know they can just go play each other. But I mean, we are sort of losing a heck of a story in the process. It's kind of like the Cubs winning the World Series. That sucked on many levels. Number one, because they're the Cubs. But even more than that, it cost us a great American sports story. The Cubs never winning the World Series is a phenomenal story. Then they went and win one, and they've still only won one in 115 years, but it's not the same as not winning any. Same kind of deal here. Eventually, it's cool, and I think people on both sides should be glad we're to this point, but we are kind of losing a pretty cool story in the process that people that don't live in this state just didn't get. Including people that would come to work at Arkansas. They weren't from this state. They didn't walk in knowing you didn't play the in-state schools. They had to be told that. And finally, you cycle through enough administrations and you get to one like with Hunter Yurachek now and the coaches they have in place that finally sit down and say, this doesn't make very much sense. And so it's a big part of the reason why we're here where we're at, talking about this game Friday night.
Well, Mr. Bobo, I want to thank you for your time to do this interview with us. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Cooper, we have an exciting game on our hands. Not only did we previously play this team in the NIT back in 05, but this is a statement game. Everybody talks about every year, what would happen if Arkansas State plays Arkansas? What happens if we would go to Fayetteville? What happens if they came to Jonesboro? Now, we have the chance to put our money where our mouth is and show Arkansas that they're not only the only team dominant in the state of Arkansas.
And what I like about this game, it's early in the year. Anything can happen. The Red Wolves, they could come out here, get a good crowd. I know there's going to be a bunch of people wanting to watch that game. It's anticipating for all Red Wolf fans along with Razorback fans. So it's early in the year. Anything can happen. Our team, we could come out on top. It's anybody's ball game.
Right, Cooper, this is the one game out of any game left on the schedule plus the conference and conference tournament that I expect that the First National Bank Arena here in Jonesboro on campus is going to be packed, just like it was during the NIT game. I expect to see every student here in Arkansas State filling up that arena, every fan filling up that arena, just like we did back in the day when we beat Arkansas here in Jonesboro. I expect to see the same energy there as there was now. And, I'm just excited to see this Arkansas State team beat the Razorbacks and show that Arkansas State is a team that nobody wants to sleep on instead of Arkansas. But, Cooper, let's give your final remarks, and we're going to go ahead and close. So, Cooper, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I think they will pull off the upset just because of the crowd.
Right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Red Wolf Roundtable, guys. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We will see you when we see you again. If we don't see you before the holidays, we want here at ASU-TV want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving with your family. And for Red Wolf Roundtable, I'm Tristan Harlan.
And I'm Cooper Melder.
Have a great time, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.